Hello, today is Monday, April 20th, 2020. I'm Joe Schmidt from TC2, and this is Staying Connected. If you're a longtime listener to these podcasts, or if you've been binge listening while you're hunkered down at home, you've heard our views about the proposed merger of T-Mobile and Sprint. Well, it's finally happened. T-Mobile and Sprint are officially married, or should I say they've received the green light from federal and state agencies to merge. This is a big deal, and to talk about it, I'm joined by two LB3 lawyers and two of my colleagues, Sara Crifasi and Kevin DiLallo. Thanks, guys, for joining me. Okay, Sara, you and I last gave an update on this proposed merger back in, I think, January. What happened since that podcast?
Hi, Joe. Well, a lot has happened since we last spoke. In February, almost 2 years after the deal was first announced, the U.S. District Court for the Southern District of New York approved the merger. And soon after that, both the New York and California attorneys general, who had spearheaded the New York lawsuit, announced that they wouldn't appeal the court's decision. And finally, on April 1st, another remaining barrier fell away. A judge approved the settlement that the Department of Justice and the carriers had reached related to T-Mobile's divestiture of assets to Dish.
All right, 3 hurdles clear. Now, Kevin, back in May of 2018, we recorded a podcast about the announced merger, and you said at that time that you thought that this merger would eventually get approved. So, in addition to what Sara just outlined, what else has happened?
Well, Joe, also on April 1st, Sprint and T-Mobile announced that they'd completed the merger. They'd been itching to close the deal, but one final barrier stood in the way, and that was the California Public Utilities Commission's final sign-off. The two companies had urged the CPUC to vote on the merger earlier, but the agency wanted to hold off until its April 16th meeting. By that time, the CPUC had been reviewing the merger for 20 months. Clearly, Sprint and T-Mobile didn't like that very much, so a couple days before they announced the merger, they withdrew their application for CPUC approval.
Yeah, that's right. So Sprint and T-Mobile tried to get around the CPUC's jurisdiction by having Sprint register as a voice-over IP provider in California, claiming that it had completed the transition of its wireline service to IP, and so making it an unregulated information service provider rather than a telco. And as such, Sprint claimed that its status meant it was exempt from public utility or common carrier regulation, meaning the CPUC no longer had jurisdiction over the deal. And the CPUC disagreed with this position on the grounds that both companies have wireless subsidiaries in California, and wireless carriers are public utilities subject to its jurisdiction.
You know, I'll bet that most people don't really understand why a state like California can hold up a merger like this. So why is the CPUC's approval such a big deal?
Well, Joe, the companies can't officially integrate their operations within the state of California until the CPUC approves the merger. California is obviously a significant market. The thing is, wireless carriers are classified as telephone corporations and therefore public utilities subject to state regulation by the applicable DUC. And while states don't regulate wireless companies' rates or their ability to enter a market, they can regulate transfers of control, such as the transfer of Sprint's licenses and authorizations to T-Mobile.
So where does this leave us?
Well, at its April 16th meeting, the CPUC finally approved the merger in California with a unanimous vote. And the CPUC voiced concerns about the competitive effects of the merger, but eventually found it to be in the public interest as the new T-Mobile will be able to deploy a strong 5G network, making it better able to compete with AT&T and Verizon Wireless. And the agency also found that without the merger, it was uncertain whether Sprint could continue as a viable company, and that loss would have a worse impact in the market in California than the merger would.
But the CPUC's approval came with a lot of conditions. To name a few, the new integrated T-Mobile will need to become a lifeline program provider to economically disadvantaged subscribers in the state. It'll need to provide service with improved download speeds to the state's population within specified timeframes. And it will need to create new jobs in the state.
Well, let's hope it happens. You know, better coverage, faster speeds, more jobs. That all sounds like a winner to me. So, Kevin, it sounds like we've reached the light at the end of the very long merger tunnel.
Yeah, Joe, we're finally there. But until Dish fully enters the wireless market, most wireless customers still have a choice of only 3 major wireless network operators: AT&T, Verizon Wireless, and the new T-Mobile.
Okay, thanks, Kevin, and thank you as well, Sarah. Now, as you've heard, the new T-Mobile might very well be a supplier that you'll want to consider for your enterprise wireless needs. And gosh, maybe someday Dish will also be a viable consideration. So if you would like to discuss your wireless needs during this time of change, or you have other ICT requirements, you can contact Sarah, Kevin, me, or any of our LB3 and TC2 colleagues by giving us a call or sending us an email. You can also stay current by subscribing to Staying Connected, checking out our websites, or by following us on LinkedIn.